We just ran a hackathon at Formant to push ourselves to be more AI first in how we work, not just in what we build for our customers. Finn is with me today to talk about that. So Finn, when you think back to that, was there one moment where you thought, oh, wow, something really changed here? I see things a different way.
Yeah, I think you probably saw this, Henrik, but we had a bunch of people working in this hackathon, including non-engineers. So we had people from our CS team working on the hackathon, and two of our CS engineers, Aaron and Peter, made this concept of a robot simulator where you didn't have to be technical at all. You didn't have to go into any code and say what data the simulator was making. You could literally type in a prompt and say, "Hey, my robot is a robot on a farm, and I want it to experience issues once every 1 to 5 hours, and this is the sort of issue I want it to experience." Type in that prompt, submit the prompt, and then the simulator would be made in a way where it had a bunch of different data streams and it would be firing off a bunch of different events that would properly simulate what it would be like if a robot were experiencing being on a farm and having those sorts of issues and different events. And that way we could pull that data into Formant and actually make sure Formant could find those things happening. So it's a really awesome way of quickly creating a robotic data simulator. And when I saw that, I was like, that's not even our engineers making that. That's our CS engineers having a need and going into, I think they used Claude code to make that simulator, and it was up in like a day, and I was blown away.
So let's give people just enough context to understand this. So from your perspective, what were we trying to achieve with this hackathon beyond sort of let's make some fun AI stuff?
We want, as a product engineering organization, to make it really clear to all of our engineers and across our entire organization that everybody's ideas are valued. It's not just ideas coming down from the founder or ideas coming from me as a product manager or the head of engineering, or ideas coming from our CS people, right? Our engineers themselves often have really great ideas, but because they're so busy with work directly related to advancing the product and putting it into customers' hands, they often don't get the chance to really show us what they've got from an ideation standpoint. And I really want to make sure that they know that we're valuing that. So that was point number one. And obviously not quite as AI related, but the where that kind of turns into an AI related bullet point is with our AI tools, you can go so much more quickly from a really rough idea to going to iterate on that idea and then next step showing it to somebody. You can really do something really real, not even inside of a 3-day hackathon. Inside of like a 1 hour period, you can do all of those steps. So it felt like it would be a really realistic thing to let our engineers kind of iterate on their ideas, especially by using these tools. We can make something really real. And lastly, kind of a more like operational goal of this is we do have a lot of engineers who don't always have time to use new tools like this. And we wanted to let them learn from each other, and for us, the non-engineers, to learn from them. And in some cases, for the engineers to learn from us, because I'm using new tools every day. I know, Henrik, you're using a lot of new tools as well. And again, sometimes our engineers are so busy, they don't have the opportunity to see some of the stuff we're making. A big point is that this is supposed to be a really big learning opportunity for all of us, for us to figure out how each other are working, and also to work together with people that you don't always work together with. I was working together with some engineers who I hadn't before, and they were essentially coding, doing partner coding with me in a way, and that had never happened before either. So it was a really awesome kind of communal experience.
So if you were talking to somebody at another company and they said, wow, Finn, this sounds super cool. So can you walk through the basic format of the hackathon? How long was it? Who participated? How were teams formed? Like what were the mechanics of it?
We ended up deciding on kind of a more free-form format and saying, okay, we've got 3 days effectively, or call it 2.5 days. Day one was for making sure you had access to all the tools, making sure you had access to the right APIs, doing some chatting with the other participants and seeing if there was any alignment. We didn't necessarily enforce people to make teams, but said if you wanted to work together with another person, you can. So that was all kind of the day one. We didn't do much intra participant work before day one because we wanted to allow people to continue to focus on their day to day up until the start of the hackathon. Day two was the big chunk of work. So I'd say everybody was kind of figured out what their idea was, made sure they had the right tools to implement it, and just went straight to work on day two. And then day three was finally polishes in the morning, and then we went into a demo, which was really awesome. Everybody that completed a product or a prototype was able to demo what they'd worked on, and share how they built it, share why they built it, and run an actual quick live demo during the demonstration, which was really awesome.
I'm imagining you sitting watching these demos. Are you looking for anything in particular?
So I was not only looking for, hey, what tools are you using, but I was looking for basically how do you go from idea to prompt, right? Because that first prompt is so important, right? If your idea is, hey, I'm going to make a digital audio mixing engine or something, there can be an important amount of work to do before your first prompt to say, what APIs are available, what libraries should I be looking into using, etc. And you could do that work by going into Google and doing a couple of searches, or you could go into Claude's investigation mode or Claude's research mode and type in a prompt and say, hey, here's my idea. I haven't made a prompt yet in Claude Code, but I do want to understand what libraries might be useful for me to use. So that's an example of like a pre-prompt strategy. So in the period between having an initial rough idea, deciding this is the idea I want to work on, and actually starting to vibe code, what do you do in between? So I really wanted to see that because I think there are a lot of different strategies. One of my strategies has been let Cloud Code figure it out or let Codex figure it out. Go in, write the prompt, and say in the prompt, feel free to use whatever library or API that you want to get this done. And then other people may have more of an opinion and want to do more research in that interim period. So I really wanted to see the different ways that people were thinking about that problem.
That's very cool. Let's try and maybe get into some specifics. I would love you to walk us through a few projects that really stuck with you. Like what comes to mind?
The first that comes to mind is actually what I had described at the beginning of the call, which is this like prompt-based robot simulator creator. There's probably a better name for that out there. But in the past, it's been really hard to actually create a simulator because not only do you have to create all of the streams, you have to create these engines to create stream simulators and then combine them all into one kind of simulator object and get that working with Formant. But you really have to think about what the end output is. Do you want to be creating a simulator that is simulating a specific sequence of events? And if so, you need to make sure that all of the streams that simulator is creating in the lead up to that simulated event make sense together with each other. Long story short, these two CS engineers, customer success engineers on our team, Aaron and Peter, had this idea specifically because they have a big need for it, right? We often go to our prospects who work in a vertical that we haven't worked in before. For example, they might be in chip manufacturing, let's just say. They might have a bunch of automated systems in chip manufacturing. So how do we create a demo of Formant for them that they're going to relate to? So again, in the past, before we had a AI-based tool to create these simulators, it would be weeks worth of time just to create a simulator that made any sense. And what Aaron and Peter made was this prompt-based simulator creator that can take in either a simple prompt, or if you want to go more in detail and create a big document about exactly how a event happens, what are the streams, what the streams do in the lead up to the event, how frequent that sort of event should happen. It can include a lot of details, and you can put it all into this simulator prompt and get a simulator out of it that successfully streams data into Formant, and then we can actually demo Formant in a really powerful way for our prospects. So that blew my mind. I think that is really going to change the way we work, and I thought that was really cool.
That's awesome. That's an awesome headline. You know, that something came out of the hackathon that's going to change the way we work. I mean, that's a high bar. You can hope for more. Are there other examples that come to mind?
Hillary, our head of HR, worked together with Maya our new chief of staff in making a web application for doing salary evaluations, essentially. So when we're looking to hire a new employee, it's really important that we have a really clear expectation of how much we're going to need to pay them, both from a salary and stock compensation standpoint. It's just really cool to see people completely outside of the engineering team starting to use these tools. It's very clear to me that like with the rate of acceleration of these AI-based vibe coding tools, we're going to be in a totally different place 1 year from now than where we are today. Like it's really crazy.
You're giving an example where essentially people who work in operations, non-engineers, jumped in and made themselves a custom tool. So this, I mean, what a time to be alive.
I'm a technical product manager, so I am not somebody who's committing and merging to our Git repos every day, but I know enough to be dangerous, quote unquote, be dangerous. And as a result, when I am making a new project using a vibe coding tool, I know enough to hesitate sometimes and be like, wait, it's going to need to work in this way. It's going to need to have these dependencies on a specific type of backend, etc. Somebody who's not technical is not going to know those issues. And as such, they almost have an advantage because they'll go into the vibe coding tool. They're not going to mention any of that because they don't know. They're just going to say exactly how they want their thing to work. 3 months ago, even, the tools weren't good enough to work without the added context of I want you to make a backend using Supabase, and I need you to make the front. I want it to be a React-based front end, and I'm going to deploy it on Vercel. Like you really needed to give a lot of context, but the tools have gotten so good in the last even month or 2 months that you literally just say what you want it to do, and it works, which is really awesome for me to see because that's reminding me like how quickly the things are changing. But it just goes to show like how useful these things are for totally non-technical people.
If we run a hackathon again in 6 months, what would that even look like?
The frequency and rate at which we can iterate on ideas is like so much smaller now, which is amazing. And again, there are some downsides there. And the reason I bring that up is I think our ideas are so much better when I can bounce them off of you and bounce them off of Richard and bounce them off of Hillary and bounce them off of Nick and Aaron, etc. And just working in a vacuum together with Claude Code is great and I can accomplish a lot, but I think it's so much more powerful as a tool to really promote partner vibe coding. So with that being said, I think something that I would like to see in the next time we do this is really promoting partner vibe coding, essentially. Group up in teams of 2 to 3, come up with an idea, iterate on the idea more, and come to the demo as a team. I'd love to see that be the change because we did see a couple of teams form naturally. I think 2 or 3 teams formed. And then there were like, I don't know, 7 or 8 individuals that presented. But I think I'd really like to push forth the idea of forming teams.
So at the personal level, are there something that this hackathon changed for you in how you think about your job or your workflow, collaboration?
I think that I'm getting more comfortable actually committing and merging PRs to dev on repos other than the main repos of our product, but actually committing and merging PRs to dev and getting an application that I worked with other engineers on in vibe coding tools actually in front of customers. We have one that we're working on right now. It's called Triage, and we've been iterating on the product in Cloud Code a bunch, and it's probably another better time to talk about what it does. But we're starting to put it in front of customers because we think it's really interesting. And we'd like to keep the momentum going on iteration on the product. So again, before I was mentioning in the goal for the next hackathon, working in teams, but also there's this other aspect of vibe coding that lets us put things in front of customers faster. And it's not just putting napkin sketches in front of customers faster. It's not just putting a V0 functional UI prototype in front of customers faster. It's putting a full proof of concept with a working backend in front of a customer and actually letting them use it. And that's crazy. If you asked me that a year ago, I would have said, no way. Being able to put together something with a full front end, full back end that I spent 2 days vibe coding and saying, here, customer, does this work for you? Is like, that's that's unbelievable.
That's so interesting. My brain goes to The Lean Startup, which was such a formative book for me, right? Where they say build, measure, learn in this continuous loop. And the startup that can make that loop run the fastest and the most efficiently will win. Hey, Finn, thank you for being a consistently awesome guy to work with and for driving so much of this hackathon and walking us through what happened.
Thanks so much, Henrik. And I told you this before. Every time I leave a call with you, I leave the call feeling like more inspired. So we should maybe just do this every day or something.